How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, I would like to welcome you here. It's the Eric Erickson Show across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I just, before I get into anything else, I gotta say something. And again, I am working very hard these two, because I know y'all's anxiety levels. I don't want to be antagonistic to people. This isn't about politics at all. Have y'all heard the story Abercrombie and Fitch? When I was in college, every guy wore clothes from Abercrombie and Fitch, and the former CEO has been arrested. And the story is just sick, twisted, and demented. Mike Jeffries is he's now 80 years old. He was taken into custody along with his partner, Matt Smith, and another man named Jim Jacobson. They come after lots of allegations of sexual exploitation. The indictment alleges that Jeffries and Smith had sex with aspiring male models between December of 2008 and March of 2015 after Jacobson traveled throughout the United States and intentionally recruited them. Part of the recruitment saw Jacobson pressure men into performing acts on him. And then they operated a demented referral system where models referred other models without telling them what they were getting into. They would have parties where they would forcibly drug the young male models, some of them heterosexual, and force them upon the young men, or force the young men to do things with each other after drugs and alcohol and other things. Just simply twisted, dark, and demented. The proverbial Jeffrey Epstein or P. Diddy. All these wealthy, godless people. But that's the story. But as a side note, y'all, I am looking at the picture of this CEO who's now 80 years old, and there aren't all the major pictures of this guy are old, but dude has had some work. He does not look natural at all. And I honestly, y'all, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but do y'all who have had plastic surgery understand you don't look natural anymore? Do y'all understand that your eyebrows, like, that's not natural? You went from young white person to older white Asian person. The way your eyes are now, it's gross. It doesn't look natural. And I know people who do this. Now, I am told that it's based on money. And if you spend enough money, no one's ever going to know. And yet I continue to be amazed by the number of very wealthy Hollywood celebrities who get plastic surgery, filler, Botox, and the like. I like that. That ain't natural. Grow old gracefully, people. I do not understand this plastic surgery desire. And you look at these people when they're younger. Like, I pulled up pictures of this guy from when he was pre-plastic surgery days, and he's growing old gracefully, and then suddenly, like, his face and eyebrows, and it's pulled back and too smooth. It's creepy. It's not natural looking. Look at Kenny Rogers. God bless the man. Look at Kenny Rogers. Does not look like Kenny Rogers anymore. The country music singer. Kenny Rogers, my goodness gracious, he passed away a number of years ago. But you look at the old picture, the pre-plastic surgery pictures and the post-plastic surgery pictures, the man looks completely different. It's not just all these Hollywood celebrities, and I know people in the real world, and God love them. They're wonderful people, but they just decided that they needed to look younger for their business or what. And it's not that they look younger, it's that they look like they're from another planet now. I am convinced. You see the pictures of the people. Y'all know the pictures that people claim the aliens who possess them. And they got the real round giant foreheads and the pulled back eyes. I think they weren't possessed by aliens. They were possessed by people who had facelifts and are trying to figure out, how can I get my real face back? I think that's what it is. I don't mean to go off on this tangent. Listen, they tell me that one of the things that comes up in the research on this program is you never know what you're going to get when you listen to me. And I didn't know even I was going to get that till I pulled up the story and saw the picture of that man. It's like, who thought this looked like a good idea? I don't understand. Like, it's like they grabbed you under the nose and then pulled you back, and you look like that red skeleton dude from Captain America. It doesn't look natural. Please, no disrespect, and I understand. Listen, my wife had a double mastectomy. I understand the needs for plastic surgery, but facelifts and the Botox filler and all that, so y'all, it just, unless your name is Dolly Parton, no. There are real needs for plastic surgery. Like, for example, I have a friend who got skin cancer on his cheek and was going to have a big scar from where the skin cancer was. And a plastic surgeon did excellent, or you would never know that this person had this big cut out of the side. He did a wonderful job. You can't even tell. It's remarkable what a skilled plastic surgeon can do for something like that. But for the total facelift, my God, people, please stop. Act your age. Part of that is growing old gracefully. And part of that is not pulling your face back to your butt, stapling it all together, and claiming you're 15 when you're 50. All right. I feel better now. That just, the whole story there is creepy. All right, you know what? Now, I'm not going to talk about facelifts. Let me just say. So, we have Jeffrey Epstein. We have P. Diddy. We now have this Mike Jeffries guy. I am, so my favorite psalm is Psalm 73. And you know that there's a reverse corollary to it. It wasn't, I don't think by design, other than providential, I guess you say. Psalm 37 is a psalm of David on what it's like to be a child of God in a fallen world. And Psalm 73 is from Asaph, who is essentially writing the contrary perspective of, man, let's look at the world versus God. All these people in the world, they look like they're having a great old time. They are rich. They can get away with stuff we can't get away with, not just because of conscience, but because God would never let us get away with this. These people are just, they're living life. Here we are struggling. All the world is struggle and strife, and we're miserable. And these people, they're living off the hog. They are fat and they've never missed a meal. Now they're going and having a good old time, and we're giving up all this stuff. They get to have the orgy, and we're in here praying. Looks like they're having more fun than us. And then you just find out. I mean, at the end of it, basically, it's Asaph realizes, oh yeah, they're going to burn in hell, and I'm not. But it's just, I mean, you listen to this stuff. You watch these things. You realize there are people who, because of their lifestyle, their wealth, and their connections, they think they can get away with anything. They think they can get away with anything. I work real hard on not being a covetous person, and I got to admit, it's hard sometimes. I was flying back from Texas on Saturday, sitting next to a NetJets pilot. He had a lanyard. He had his credentials around his neck, and it was on a Gulfstream lanyard. And I sat down next to him and I looked and I said, I got to ask, what Gulfstream do you fly? The 450. Michael Jordan has a Gulfstream 450. It's a nice plane. Transcontinental. It can get from my house to Paris if I wanted it to. Not that I can afford to have one. I thought, oh, man. I looked at the guy and I said, I bet you wish you were on that plane right now instead of Delta. And he looked at me and says, are you kidding me? If I was on that plane, I would be in the cockpit working. Here I get free drinks all the way back to Atlanta. I was like, that's good perspective. I want a bajillion radio stations so I have the revenue so I can get out of the airport. That airport in Texas, I couldn't walk 5 feet without somebody recognizing me, everybody coming in from the Georgia game. It was kind of fun. It was very flattering, but also I just want to be left alone. And I thought, man, I could have flown over Friday morning and flown back Friday night if I had the money to fly private, like a lot of people who were there for that game in F1. Yeah, I got a covetous streak in me. I know it. I'm working on it. But then I look at some of these people. I'm like, I don't want to wind up like that guy. They got more money than they know what to do with. They take it. They take advantage of people. They feel like they are entitled to it by virtue of their wealth, by virtue of who they are and what they do. I don't ever want to become like that. And I am more and more aware, the more and more I get around exceedingly wealthy people, that there are some who are exceedingly normal people. And then there are some who just decide through a perversion of their heart that they can get away with whatever they want to get away with. They got the money. They can pay people to be quiet. And it can be really corrupting. And so I look at the P. Diddy's and the Epsteins and this Mike Jeffries guy allegedly running a human trafficking ring. It's always human trafficking with these weird old people, isn't it? It's always human trafficking. Sexual perversions and drugs and all sorts of stuff. I was talking to a buddy of mine a couple of weeks ago who was in private security. And had a guy, very famous person, and they were in a foreign country, and my friend who was the private security guy, his job was to go to a local club and find a bunch of girls who they were going to pay a lot of money to hang out with a bunch of older men, married men on a boat. And I mean, we all know where this is going. And my buddy was like, I did not take this job to be a babysitter for perverts, and he left. But man, it can be corrupting, and we're hearing more and more of these stories. The bottom line ultimately is I think the old saying, your sins will find you out. Your sins are going to find you out. It's one reason I like the doctrine of hell, honestly, why I get comforted. People get freaked out when I say that. You get comfort of the doctrine? Yeah, because there are people in this lifetime who are going to get away with this, and we're never going to know about some of these creepy people. We are never going to know about it, and they are going to live high off the hog forever. And then they're going to die. And when they die, well, they cannot escape that justice. They cannot escape the fires of hell. Yes, that gives me comfort that bad people may get away with stuff in this lifetime, but they're not in the next. But the more and more this stuff goes on, the exposure of these deeply demented people who they can't let go of this life, they can't let go of their youth, it's all vanity. And it's just gross. I got to tell you, I am increasingly convinced that one of the neuroses of people on the left really does come down to J.D. Vance's single cat women line, the level of offense at that line some people took. Now, look, I do understand from some the offense. But at the same time, there was probably disproportionate rage about it by a bunch of single cat women who are starting to dawn on them because of their age that they are going to be old and childless and have no one to take care of them. And a lot of them are the ones out there who are having the plastic surgery, trying to make themselves look young again and not growing old gracefully. They cannot come to terms with life. And it's sad to see. Grow old gracefully, people. Grow old gracefully. And also, don't be a seedy, wealthy pervert, because your sins are going to find you out and you're going to wind up in jail or hellfire, or one or both. And my gosh, these people are just, it's just so creepy. Ugh. Breaking news. This is actually very interesting news. The Los Angeles Times has just announced It will not be endorsing Kamala Harris for president of the United States. Doesn't mean they're endorsing Trump. It just means they are not going to endorse Kamala Harris, which is very interesting because the Los Angeles Times endorsed Kamala Harris for Attorney General in 2014, endorsed Kamala Harris for the United States Senate in 2016, endorsed Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's running mate in 2020, and is now not going to endorse her. The Los Angeles Times does not want to go down with the sinking ship that is the USS Kamala Harris. They're staying out of it. Now, the Los Angeles Times, again, this is not a conservative organization. They have endorsed every left-wing populist position on the ballot in California over the last few years. They have endorsed the left-wing California district attorneys in the L.A. County area. They've endorsed a lot of progressivism. But Kamala Harris's campaign for president is a bridge too far. If they really thought Kamala Harris was going to win, they would want to be on board. They are blaming out there in social media the publisher of the Los Angeles Times now and the new owner. The new owner is of Asian descent, Patrick Soon-Shiong. I suspect Democrats have finally found someone in this country they would like to deport. You know, the behind the scenes, Democrats are furious. The New York Times was willing to toe the line. Every major publication in America has been willing to toe the line, except the Los Angeles Times. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Y'all, okay, here's the thing. Panic is starting to set in. Within a week, we're going to start seeing mainstream media reporters who had book deals throwing Kamala Harris under the bus because they know that suddenly they're not going to make the money they thought they were going to make. And that's going to be the biggest warning sign of all, that she is toast. All right, we still got a lot to cover. There's a lot of stuff. If you saw the show notes today, I haven't even got through all of it. We will get to it when we come back. But first, I need to tell you about Hillsdale College. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com, you get something for free. You put in your information at ericforhillsdale.com, and you get a free pocket Constitution and Declaration of Independence. That's right. Free pocket Constitution, Declaration of Independence at Hillsdale College. You go to ericforhillsdale.com. Not only that, once you do that, you'll be able to get into the Hillsdale College Podcast Network and get all of their free, great, highly informative podcast conversations. You'll be able to get Larry Arnn's lectures on the Constitution, Victor Davis Hansen's lectures on citizenship, and you'll be able to build a relationship with Hillsdale College. You also can get Imprimis for free. I took mine on my plane. Those of you who passed me on the airplane on the way out to Texas saw me reading my Imprimis on the airplane. I am a nerd. It actually is really good, and it's free. ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. You can't go wrong with Hillsdale College, and you get a free Constitution, pocket Constitution from them. ericforhillsdale.com. Go build your relationship with Hillsdale College today. Hello, my friends. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you text Eric, ERICK, to 33777, you can get the podcast live stream show notes. Click that very first link. The show notes are available to everyone today. Well, no, they're not. I put some of them behind the paywall. You got to be a paid subscriber to get the whole show notes. I put a lot of time into building that email, so everybody who listens to the show right when the show starts, they get my show notes email. It has all the stuff I intend to talk about, including this topic. What is the number one economic issue for voters in Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania, as you are probably aware, is a must-win state with 19 electoral college votes. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, he has 281 electoral college votes. He doesn't even need to win Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. The number one economic issue in Pennsylvania is fracking. Fracking is a genius technological advancement in the production of oil and natural gas, where oil and gas companies are able to extract fossil fuels in ways they never were before. And the result of fracking, being able to go into places where you otherwise couldn't extract the oil or natural gas and get it, has been extraordinary to the energy independence of the United States. And the left despises it. Because even though natural gas is cleaner than burning coal, it's still a fossil fuel. And the left is vehemently opposed to natural gas in this country. Now, the spokesgal for Kamala Harris on the environment turns out to, in her other job, also be an opponent of gas-burning stoves. That's right. The woman who is in charge of environmental coalitions for Kamala Harris is a vehement opponent of gas stoves. Her name is Camilla Thorndike. And in a recent interview with Politico, she said voters concerned about climate change shouldn't fear a Harris presidency because the vice president is not promoting expansion of fossil fuel drilling. She's just said they wouldn't ban fracking. Now, this was Kamala Harris's original position of opposing expanded fossil fuel use. Now, Harris said in 2020 she wanted to ban fracking. She then reversed and said she won't ban fracking. And now, after Thorndike told people that Harris doesn't want to expand fossil fuel drilling, Thorndike is now saying, well, no, she's not going to ban fracking. She's not going to ban fracking. Keep in mind, Joe Biden announced a temporary pause on all liquid natural gas exports and export terminals in January because of climate change. A federal judge overruled him on this. The Democrats are willing to kill our energy independence to save the planet. They would rather us be dependent on China. But here's the problem again. Camilla Thorndike, the climate engagement director for Kamala Harris, in her day job, campaigns against gas-burning stoves and was willing to tell people 2 weeks before the election that Kamala Harris does not want to expand fossil fuel drilling. It's terrible politics in Pennsylvania. Terrible politics. Now, Thorndike has had to walk this back, but the damage was done. Over to you, Fox News.
You've been skeptical of her position on fracking, she's been going back and forth, and apparently she's gone back again. This is a spokesperson of hers, a climate aide to her, said to Politico, she is not promoting expansion of fossil fuel drilling. She just said that they wouldn't ban fracking, and the fact that anyone could look up is that the IRA required leases, and that was not something that she promoted. But listen to this. This is her position, as stated before, back then.
To get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
I am committed to passing a Green New Deal, creating clean jobs, and finally putting an end to fracking once and for all.
So then she said she wasn't, but now the spokesperson is saying, but really it's not that big a deal, and it's really not as big a thing as we're making it out to be.
You know, more people watch Fox News in Pennsylvania than watch CNN and MSNBC combined. And a lot of people watch Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino. And they saw him with Doug Burgum talking about this issue. This was an unforced error by a climate zealot for Kamala Harris. It's just dumb. It's a dumb thing that they've done. Now listen, We all know that if Kamala Harris were to get elected president, she would seek to scale back fracking in this country and placate environmentalists. We know that. We absolutely know that. There's no doubt in my mind. However, she can't say that right now. There are 19 electoral college votes on the line, and she can't say that. And by the way, fossil fuels, they also impact the Michigan race because the automotive industry is a fossil fuel driven industry. And where the the auto industry has moved to electric vehicles, there have been massive layoffs in Michigan. It undermines the economy of that state and jobs in that state. Trying to placate the far left has been a disaster for the Democrats. Here's the reality of this campaign 2 weeks before the election. Kamala Harris is alienating voters in Pennsylvania by flip-flopping on fracking 2 weeks before the election. She's also alienating those same voters in Michigan, where the automotive industry depends on fossil fuels for their cars that they make up there, and they believe their job's going to be impacted by her election if it were to happen. And the transition to electric vehicles actually doesn't work for those workers in Michigan, many of whom are getting laid off as the auto manufacturing companies switch to EVs. She's also campaigning with Liz Cheney, who Muslim voters in Michigan do not particularly like because of her ties to her father and a reminder of the war in the Middle East. Harris is held hostage by progressive donors who are out of touch with the American public. The Washington Post has a big story today about how Donald Trump's closing message in the United States is on trans issues and scaring voters in swing states about transgender kids in their daughters' locker rooms. They attack Republicans for doing this every time, and you know what? The trans issue works, and Democrats agree. The only people who disagree are snobbish, out-of-touch, elite white reporters in the American newsrooms of Washington and New York, and the very wealthy white donors to the Harris campaign. She is held hostage to the vices of a progressive left that more and more Americans have rejected. These progressive leftists have forced the Democrats to the far left on the environment. They have forced the Democrats to the far left on abortion. They have forced the Democrats to the far left on trans rights. They have forced the Democrats to the far left on police funding. They have forced the Democrats to the far left on family planning. They have forced the Democrats to the far left on education and public schooling and denying parents the ability to get their kids out of a school unless they're wealthy enough to move to a better zip code. The progressive donors of the Democratic Party have hijacked the Democratic Party in a way that alienates the Democratic Party from the middle class, from the poor, and from non-white voters. If you are a wealthy, white, secular person, you are absolutely voting Democrat, and you are bringing to the Democratic Party a bunch of white paternalistic ideas that you think will connect you to people who have nothing in common with you, and what you're doing is driving those people away from the Democratic Party. You can scream all you want that Donald Trump is a racist. You can scream all you want that Donald Trump is a bigot. The fact of the matter is some of the biggest racists and bigots are white progressives at the upper echelons of the income stratosphere in America who think they know what's best for black families. The biggest racists in the room are white Democrats who think that a black person, because of their zip code, should be forced to stick with a failing public school. The biggest racist in the Democratic Party is one who thinks it is a bad thing if Planned Parenthood cannot set up shop in a black community to abort black babies. And these white progressive racists are funding Kamala Harris's campaign and dragging Kamala Harris to the left. And the net result of all of it is she is losing a significant minority of non-white voters. She is losing a state like Pennsylvania, and she just might lose a state like Michigan with a level of tone deafness about international affairs and about the automotive industry. The campaign is terrible. It is run by men who sit to pee and cast aspersions on the men who still stand at the urinal instead of turning around and sitting into it. They don't relate to men. They don't relate to married people. They don't relate to middle-class black America. They don't relate to middle-class Hispanic America. They don't relate to working-class whites. They simply do not relate to a majority of Americans. And here we are, 2 weeks before the election, and suddenly they have a clue that something is wrong in the Harris campaign. It's too late to fix it. All they can do is hope to mobilize more Trump-hating voters than they already have, which is why they're campaigning with Liz Cheney, who hates Donald Trump. And I just don't think it's going to be as successful for them as they think. And I think that's why you're seeing an institution like the LA Times say, we're not going down with the ship. We're just not going to endorse. The Democrats are in such a bubble. They think they relate to people outside that bubble, and they don't. They cast aspersions at Donald Trump going to a McDonald's, claiming it is insulting to the people who work there. How? How is it insulting? A man who wants to be president of the United States put on the same apron you put on every day, and somehow that is that's insulting? I'm sorry, Democrats, you're out of touch. And I find a lot of Republicans out of touch these days, and you're outdoing yourselves in your inability to connect with the middle class, the working class, and a whole lot of white people outside the East and West Coast. You're in a bubble. And because so many members of the media are in the bubble with you, none of you realize just how out of touch you are. But I mean, for members of the media, nobody trusts you anymore, even the Democrats. At the end of this campaign, the Harris campaign is coming off the rails, and they don't know how to get back on the rails. And time, frankly, has run out. You got a week left. You can't fix stupid in a week. Now, I got to tell you about Americans for Prosperity, because they're out knocking on doors, getting people to understand the issues of what conservatives care about and how to implement conservative policy changes in this country. They would love to have you on board. They have chapters in every state. It's a great group to belong to. You go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. If you go there to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer, you sign up with AFP. They can give you all of the information and tools and training to be a highly effective conservative activist. They will teach you how to go door to door to make a persuasive case for common sense conservative solutions to your neighbors. They'll teach you how to go to your state legislature, even your local government, your local school board, to advocate for school choice, to advocate for deregulation for small businesses, to advocate for tax reform that's common sense and conservative, to advocate for families. They give you all the information. They give you all the knowledge. They give you the deep dive resources to make this happen. They're the largest leading grassroots group in the country. They're on our side. They'd love to have you on board. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Go sign up with them today. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I want to take one last call today from Bill. Welcome to the show, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thank you for taking the call here at the last minute.
Sure.
My question is, if Kamala loses, and since this whole thing seems to have been orchestrated, do you think we're going to see fallout within the Democrat Party for whoever it was that put this whole plan together?
So, Bill, this is why I want to take your phone, because I was talking to a very well-known news anchor late yesterday after the show, and we were talking about this very issue. And while we were talking about this issue, he and I both got a text message from a very famous Democratic political consultant, and so we started this group chat. And let me just say that the Democratic consultant is still very much we're going to kick his butt. We're going to kick his butt. They're still in. We're going to win. We're going to win. Trash talking the election, but at the same time was like, and if we don't, may God have mercy on everyone in Washington D.C. who covered up Joe Biden's health, including Kamala Harris. The cover up of Joe Biden's mental decline is a national scandal that the moment this election is over, the recriminations of Democrats, and I will tell you, the very first two people who will be thrown under the bus, and we will watch that bus run back and forth over them until their bodies are no longer recognizable, are Kamala Harris and Jill Biden. The Democrats of America have decided that Jill Biden is the villain, covering up Joe's mental decline, that Biden himself is no longer culpable because he lacks the capacity to be culpable. I mean, we are in for some incredible recriminations if Kamala Harris loses on election night. In fact, when that New York Times little arm flips over to Donald Trump is going to win, I will be turning on MSNBC and I will be glued to that network while those people are handed pencils and forks and start stabbing each other live on TV in recriminations. It's going to be.
If they recognize that he's not capable of running a country, why isn't Kamala being held accountable for not moving him out of office and taking over?
People are already starting to privately ask that question. And in fact, senior Democrats believe that Kamala Harris would be in a better position if Joe Biden had left the White House so she could change policy positions. Because he hasn't left, she can't walk away from those policy positions. And it is just genuinely a wild thing that we're where we are. Bill, look, I got to let you go there. I appreciate the phone call. But y'all, I got to tell you, this was a hilarious chat that I had yesterday with this well-known news anchor is at the point where he feels like the race is not quite over, but almost there. And he's where I am, that given the polling from 2020, 2018, 2022, and 2016, that if it's a tied race, that helps the GOP. And that's where we are. And the Democrat in the group chat wasn't willing to say yes, but he knew we were right. It's going to be hell to pay if Kamala Harris actually loses, and I can't wait to watch MSNBC when it happens.